This section talks about domains and kingdoms. Scientists classify organisms on their cell types and their structure into groups called domains. And domains are broken down into kingdoms based on their cell type, their structure, and their function. So I want to move to this really important chart over here that really breaks this information down into like a really organized way. So if you see this chart, you'll refer back to it quite a bit. So the domains are listed here. You have bacteria, archaea, and the eukaryotes. And that is further, you can see out of bacteria and archaea, they actually have kingdoms of bacteria and archaea only, but the eukarya is broken down into the protists, the fungus, the plants, and the animals. So it's the eukaryotes, which means true cells. They are further broken down into four kingdoms. And it shows some cool examples here and their relative size because some of it is like not visible by your naked eye and some are very big. And then further, it's broken down into cell types. So the cell type for bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotes. So like before a true cell. And then a eukaryote is a true cell. And all of eukarya have are eukaryotes, true cells. So their cell walls, the bacteria have cell walls with peptidoglycan, which has basically two kinds of sugar that alternate in a chain. And then the archaea has cell walls without peptidoglycan. And then you have protists that have cell walls with cellulose in some of them. Here for fungi, you have cell walls with chitin, and chitin is like a really rigid polymer that gives support. And then flowers have cell walls with cellulose, and Animalia has no cell walls. So, you know, like our body cells don't even have cell walls. And then the number of cells for bacteria and archaea, they're unicellular. For protists, they can be unicellular or multicellular. For fungi, they're mostly multicellular. And for plants and animals, they're mostly multicellular. So then after that, the nutrition is autotrophs and heterotrophs here for archaea and bacteria and protists. But fungi are actually heterotrophs, meaning they have to go and eat something else. A plant is an autotroph, meaning it makes its own food, and an animal is a heterotroph, meaning it has to make something else to survive. So this is all just really interesting, and I want to talk about archaea really quickly because we compared all the traits, but you probably know what bacteria is, but what is this archaea? Archaea are very similar to bacteria. You can see that they share a lot of things. But archaea specifically can live in the most extreme environments on our earth. They can live in acids. They can live in thermal heat vents, in boiling hot springs. They can live in the saltiest salt lakes. They can live in, you know, just any crazy environment, acids, things like that. They can live in that. And so that makes them really kind of cool and amazing what they're capable of doing. So another one I wanted to point out is fungi. A lot of people think that fungi is a plant, and it's not. But fungi and protists can actually make a really cool relationship where they come together and they make something called a lichen. And I actually brought up some pictures. If any of you guys are cool hikers or out in nature a lot, you might see one of these things called a lichen. And lichens can be on rocks or they can be on plants, but it's actually a mutualistic relationship between a fungus and a protist. So the fungi provides the home and will be the protection, but then the protist comes and move in like an algae. It will move inside of the fungus and produce food, make food because it's a it's like an autotroph and can use the sun to make food. So it'll make food for the fungus, and the fungus provides the algae protist a home, which I just think is so awesome. Okay, so if you're using this table and you are looking for a creature that has a cell type of a eukaryote, it has no cell walls. As the cell walls, it has no cell walls. For number of cells, it is multicellular, and for nutrition, it's a heterotroph. So a eukaryote with no cell walls that's multicellular and its nutrition is a heterotroph, then it would be an animal. Not necessarily a bat, that was just an example there, but it would be an animal from kingdom Animalia. So that is how you read this down to find different things. Like if you were trying to find one with a cell type that's a eukaryote, have cell walls with cellulose in some, have unicellular and multicellular as their number of cells, and nutrition could be autotroph or heterotroph. Everything I just read down here was a diatom. So make sure you look at that. Now, fungi are also interesting because fungi, in order to eat things, like your book has a picture of moldy bread, when the fungi wants to eat this bread, which has probably happened in your house before, it actually lands on it. It releases its digestive juices on your cheese or on your bread or whatever in your house, and then it will absorb the food directly into its cells. It's kind of amazing and gross what fungi is capable of. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned through all of this is viruses. We will actually talk about that in a future chapter. But viruses basically are not considered living things. They don't have cells and they can't reproduce without invading another organism and hijacking their reproductive system. Well, I think that's really amazing, and in some ways, I think you should get some credit for that. Viruses are not considered living things, so that's one exception.